There we go. Hey, you guys. We are live. There we go. Okay. I wonder. Oh, I know what we need to do. Come over here. That's right. I want to be able to see how the book shows up. So, hi, you guys. We're here. We're back. We're reading from the Bhagavad Gita. I just want to say that I'm not an expert in this book. I'm a student with this book and in these teachings, and I don't see this as a teaching from the Bhagavad Gita of a religion. I see this as a teaching of really a pointing to how we could live, not in a belief in something. The characters are mythology, and so it's a beautiful story that of the human condition, and with the possibility of of awakening. And what is it? How would we like to live free? How would we like to live free and free of judgment, free of desire, free of fear, free of wanting, free of complaint. And I think my experience is that the answers to the way is shown in this book. It's a beautiful piece, and there are many, but this is very pure in its description of this freedom. And of course, this freedom that I'm speaking of brings us into oneness with God, in however you perceive that to be. And so it's not about a belief in God, it's an experience of. And that's our natural state that we're talking about. So that's it. I'm going to read a bit. We've read already. Already we've read. I'm just going to go also on here and see if. Yes. Okay. We're just going to see if. There it is. There we go. I'm going to read a bit. We've read already. Oh, there we are. So I can see that. There we go. Okay, so here we are. We're going to read, and we've read already a bit. And really, I over and over again, I want to share that I'm not a master of this book. This book is written by by Stephen Mitchell. Stephen Mitchell is this amazing fellow who wrote, in his lifetime, a bunch of translations. He's wrote poetry, fiction, nonfiction, which his nonfiction book was A Gospel According to Jesus, translations and adaptations, the Bhagavad Gita, Genesis, Book of Psalms, selected poetry of Dan Pages, Tao Te Ching, Book of Job, selected poetry of Yanada Amichis, so sonnets of Orpheus, So he's written a lot. This is not a guy who just woke up one day and said, well, I think I'll do a translation of the Bhagavad Gita. And then he shares with us in his, he shares with us in his introduction, which is quite a few pages, how he got to do this, how this came to him, what he, the work that he did in studying other people's translations. And so I encourage you to get this book and read, especially if you're interested in freedom. And I say that with a bit tongue-in-cheek, because my imagining sometimes is that most of us didn't know or don't know that we're not free. And or we think that freedom has something to do with what's going on outside of us. And freedom is an inside job. And I fancy myself a bit of a jailbreaker, maybe a rebel in a way, because my job is to help to break you out, if you want that, if that's what you want, And some folks don't. They're really happy with it. So that's all the introduction. There's quite a few pages, 15 or so pages of introduction, 16 pages, and then a story about the translation. Talks about how it comes originally in Sanskrit, and which I don't even know what Sanskrit looks like, let alone how would I read it. But I know what this man has written. And for me, I've read the book several times, but I've also listened to it many times, kind of in the background on Audible. And that's for me, that's been beautiful on Audible. So we read chapter 1 already, and which was titled Arjuna's Despair. So Arjuna was a warrior, and he was going into battle, and Krishna was there, piloting his chariot, actually. And then in chapter 2, the practice of yoga, and they got between the two armies. Arjuna wanted to go down between the two armies because he knew people, and there were great men in both armies, and he was in despair. He didn't really want to have this battle. He didn't want to kill. He was in despair, and so that's part of the story, the yoga of action, and we've read that, and then chapter 4, the yoga of wisdom. Beautifully done. And today we're in chapter 5, the yoga of reunification, I believe. Well, it was last Thursday. I can't remember. Oh, look at that. Jason's here. Hi, buddy. Well, there you are. Sorry, did I leave you hanging there for a while? Did we read did we read chapter 4 last?
Yeah, we're just starting chapter 5.
I can't hear you. Hang on.
I think actually maybe we even read some of chapter 5.
No, we would. I've only read a chapter at a time. So what you think we read last time on Thursday? 4. We read chapter 4, which was the yoga of wisdom.
Yeah.
And then chapter 5, we might have read that, the whole thing. If we read any of it, we read it all. And because I can't remember, I'm going to read it again.
Why not?
So good to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah, you've been okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
Good. Mind's not driving you crazy?
No, the heart.
The heart doesn't drive us crazy. It's the mind in disguise.
There you go. Right. Yeah.
It wears many disguises.
It sure does. And
The
it
crazy
feels
mind.
feels
Okay.
here.
What?
I feel it here.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. I'm so glad you're here. And we're going to do chapter 5. And I was just going through some of the setup. I guess you must have heard that. And so those of you that are following along, great that you're here. Yes, I was a little early today. I actually planned to go even earlier, but I'm reading your note that you sent me on Facebook now. I see that. Okay, you guys, there's a few folks on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. And we'll start on page 81. Have you got the book in front of you open? Do you? How would you like to read a page or two?
I'd be happy to.
Just slowly, you know. That'd be great.
Here. What I'm going to do though is put in my headphones. The Yoga of Renunciation, Chapter 5. Arjuna said, "You have praised both renunciation and the yoga of action, Krishna. Tell me now, of these two, which is the better path?" The Blessed Lord said, "Renunciation and yoga both lead to the ultimate good. But of two paths, Arjuna, yoga is the more direct. The true renunciation neither desires things nor avoids them. Indifferent to pleasure and pain, he is easily freed from all bondage. Fools say that knowledge and yoga are separate, but the wise do not. When you practice one of them deeply, you gain the rewards of both. The state reached by true knowledge is reached by yoga as well. Both paths lead to the self. Both lead to selfless action."
Isn't that interesting? Because in the 12-step world, of course, William James talked about an awakening of the educational variety. When we talk about spiritual awakenings or the path to the self, he's talking self being the one, the God self, the path to now. And William James, because in the big book of AA, it talks about, in the early days, people misunderstood and thought we had to have a kind of a burning bush experience. But Krishna is saying that no, that the state reached by true knowledge is reached by yoga as well. Both paths lead to the self. And when he's saying the self, I believe he's saying to God, to the one, to now. So that's interesting that there is those paths. Pardon me?
Oh, I was just going to keep reading.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It is hard to renounce all action without engaging in action. The sage, wholehearted in the yoga of action, soon attains freedom. Wholehearted, purified, mastering body and mind, his self becomes the self of all beings. He is unsustained by anything he does. That's exactly what you were just saying. The man who has seen the truth thinks, "I am not the doer." At all times, when he sees, hears, touches, when he smells, eats, walks, sleeps, breathes, when he defecates, talks, or takes hold, when he opens his eyes or shuts them. At all times he thinks, "This is merely sense objects, acting on the senses." Offering his actions to God, he is free of all action. Sin rolls off of him, as drops of water roll off a lotus leaf. Surrendering attachment, the sage performs all actions with his body, his mind, and his understanding only to make himself pure. The resolute in yoga surrender results and gain perfect peace. The irresolute, attached to results, are bound by everything they do.
Do you want me to read for a bit?
Yeah, maybe I've got some noise in the background.
That's beautiful sounds of people's voices. Okay. Thank you. That was awesome. Calmly renouncing all actions, the embodied self dwells at ease. As Lord of the nine-gated city, not acting, not causing action. It does not create the means of action or the action itself, or the union of results and action. All these arise from nature. Nor does it partake of anyone's virtuous or evil actions. When knowledge of the self is obscured by ignorance, men act badly. But when ignorance is completely destroyed, when the light of wisdom shines like the midday sun and illuminates what is supreme. But when ignorance is completely destroyed, then the light of wisdom shines like the midday sun and illuminates what is supreme. Nice. Contemplating that, inspired and rooted and absorbed in that, men reach the state of true freedom, from which there is no rebirth. Beautiful. Wise men regard all beings as equal. A learned priest, a cow, an elephant, a rat, or a filthy rat-eating outcast. Freed from the endless cycle of birth and death, they can act impartially towards all beings, since to them all beings are the same. They do not rejoice in good fortune, nor do they lament in bad fortune. Lucid, with minds unshaken, they remain within what is real. A man unattached to sensations, who finds fulfillment in the self, whose mind has become pure freedom, attains an inspirable joy, an imperishable joy. Beautiful. Pleasures from external objects are wombs of suffering. Damn. Pleasures from external objects are wombs of suffering, Arjuna. They have their beginnings and their ends. No wise man seeks joy among them. The man of yoga, who is able to overcome here on earth the turmoil of desire and anger, that man is truly happy. He who finds peace and joy and radiance within himself, that man becomes one with God and vanishes into God's bliss. The wise man, cleansed of his sins, who has cut off all separation, who delights in the welfare of all beings, vanishes into God's bliss. He who controls his mind and has cut off desire and anger realizes the self. He knows that God's bliss is nearer than near. Nearer than near. Beautiful. Closing his eyes, his wisdom focuses between the eyebrows, making the in-breath and the out-breath equal as they pass through his nostrils. He controls his senses and his mind, intent upon liberation. When desire, fear, and anger have left him, that man is forever free. Knowing me as the enjoyer of all worship, the Lord of all worlds, the dearest friend of all beings, that man gains perfect peace. Beautiful, eh?
Wow.
That's
I need that today.
wow.
Yeah, that was good, David.
So beautiful.
We did read that last week, though. I can remember.
Well, I think we needed it again.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. God has spoken.
Oh, beautiful. Well, there we go. So tomorrow we'll do chapter 6. We'll know now for sure. And yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for showing up. I love it that you're here.
It was perfect for me. That was perfect for me today, David. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's a chapter that could be read 100 times.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Okay, my friend, I love you.
Love you too. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes. So goodbye, everyone. Join us again tomorrow. I'm going to try to be a little earlier tomorrow, like noon, and we'll do this again. Okay. Thank you. And what else do we do? Well, in the morning, I do a little reading. Usually try to do that around 9. And it's another reading from the 24-hour day book with a little bit of a chat. And all the talks are really about this surrender of our idea of life and to living in the moment, living in the presence, living free. We're jailbreakers, baby.